Good morning, team. Today I shall be giving you a summary of Module 2. We'll be looking at what we have learned in Module 2. The first thing that we learned is that the top management must ensure leadership role and exhibit commitment towards the food safety management system. This can be done, or the top management shall do this by implementing a food safety management policy. A food safety policy. They shall also be doing this by having objectives. The policy should exhibit commitment towards the continued improvement of the food safety management system. The leadership of an organization must ensure that the responsibilities and authorities for applicable roles are well communicated and allocated at all relevant levels within the organization. The organization must determine external and internal issues that are relevant to its system. This is as per clause 4.1. We see that the organization should list the external and internal parties. It lists the external issues of each of these parties. So they must be, and they must determine who are the external and what are these external issues that could arise, that could have an impact on the food safety management system. They should also identify the boundaries and applicable for the food safety management system. This will assist in developing the scope. So you remember we said that they must understand the context of the organization. For you to develop the scope, you must understand the context of the organization. So they determine the boundaries to help in developing the scope. We also saw that the top management must develop food safety objectives at appropriate functions. That is, at every department, at every level, there must be objectives. These objectives will help to carry on and continually improve the food safety management system. We saw that management must recognize and render the resources needed for the establishment, application, maintenance, and continuous enhancement of the FSMS. That is in clause 7. There must be resource provision. The organization also must provide resources for the determination, establishment, and maintenance of infrastructure necessary to achieve conformity with the requirements of the food safety management system. Remember, we said if the infrastructure is not suitable, then you might have a compromise on the safety of the product, or a compromise on the system, on the food safety management system. The organization must ensure that externally provided processes, those external, where they source services or processes, in our case it's mostly services, they do not adversely affect the food organization's ability to consistently meet the requirements of the food safety management system. So wherever they are sourcing the services, then these services should not affect the establishment or the stability of the FSMS within the organization, or it should not compromise on the system. There must be documented information of external origin by the management to be planned. Documented information of external origin identified by management. For that, anything that is of external origin, that is an external document, maybe what you get from the TRF or the T-Board, you must control that and approve it for use. If this has been determined that it will be used within the organization or for the operation of the food safety management system, then this document must be controlled. So that means the organization or the management must identify all the documents of external origin, identify them, and control them for use within the organization. The standard requires that a traceability system must be in place, and the traceability system must be able to recognize or to identify any incoming material from the suppliers to the end product. That means you must trace your product. That is, in case of any incident or any non-conformity, then you are able to trace the product backwards and know the cause and eliminate. Also, that it is required that there must be identified emergency situations. The organization must be able to identify any possible emergency incidences that could occur. And there must be procedures in place to handle these emergency situations, especially those which can have an influence or an impact on the food safety, thus able to handle them. So the procedures must be in place, and these procedures should be able to help in handling the emergency situations when they occur. For hazard analysis, it is that the food safety team must do an hazard analysis, and for this to be possible, there must be flow diagrams, and these flow diagrams are representation of the process from where the process begins to where it ends. So the flow diagrams must be used in conducting hazard analysis. This will be able to evaluate the possible occurrences in case of an increase in any hazards or introduction of hazards or any food hazards. The flow diagrams should be able to identify. Also, the food safety team will have to verify these flow diagrams on site. So the flow diagrams are in place, yes. The food safety team must go on site and identify or approve that the flow diagram is as it is, and it is appropriate to the organization or to the context of the organization. And then the flow diagrams must be retained as documented information. The food safety team must conduct a hazard analysis based on preliminary information to determine the hazards that need to be controlled. Remember, we said that before an hazard analysis is carried out, then there must be information that is collected. This information includes the specifications of the raw material, where are you sourcing it, what raw material is this, the process, the description of the processes, the description of the process, the product contact materials. So the organization must identify steps in receiving of the raw material to the processing to the distribution, or according to the scope that you have identified as your scope. In this case, it is from reception to dispatch, at which each food safety hazard can be present, be introduced, increase, or persist. So these steps must be identified. The organization must also determine the acceptable level in the end product of each food safety hazard identified whenever possible. This identification, these hazards must be identified. An assessment should be done also to determine whether its prevention or reduction to an acceptable level is essential. Based on the hazard assessment, the food organization must select an appropriate control measure or a combination of control measures that will be capable to prevent or reduce the identified significant food hazards to acceptable levels. So there must be control measures. After identifying each process, then under each process you have identified the possible hazards that could occur in each of those processes. Then we must identify control measures of each of these possible hazards.